Warning: the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Hello and welcome to this Rabbits video. Today we are looking at episode 4, season 1 of the Rabbits Podcast, part 3 of Doglover in Hell. This is a pretty good episode. They build on each other and it just gets better and better. So without further ado, let's jump into this.
Okay, so what does all of this mean to me?
Go here. Find out.
Okay, but don't I have to physically access an intranet?
There is something between an intranet and an extranet. A system that incorporates a series of wireless transmitters, a complex relay setup. Lucky for you, Seattle is a hotspot.
Right.
Jones?
I really like that, though. This idea of quantum computers and quantum stuff being a little bit further advanced than what we're led to believe.
Yeah? If you really did see the wardens, we don't have much time.
I know I've said this in other videos, but as the wizard is probably, or the magician, excuse me. The magician is probably my favorite supporting character in the entire podcast and in the novels.
The magician handed me a business card with one really long number on it, followed by a login and password combination. Back at my place, I pressed Jones for more information about the wardens, about the magician's warning, but he told me I should be focused on finding Yumiko, on considering the clues we had so far. The passenger pigeon, the steps to the lighthouse, and the marigold recordings, which were sitting on his laptop, loaded and ready to play. He put his headphones on and pressed the spacebar. I pulled out the magician's business card and typed the long number into a search engine. And suddenly, I was staring at a flashing login screen.
I think, or at least for me, there's probably no greater joy than having a login for something and going to a brand new site or something like that just to see what's there.
I typed in the login information from the card, which was 2 letters, N-O, and then the password, future, no future, cute. The Hazel dossier, as the website was called, was a list of links. I clicked on the first and up popped a graphic. It was an acronym, 3 letters, WTF. But the initials didn't mean the usual. In this case, the words beside the letters spelled out, "Where's the future?" I clicked.
I really like that play on the WTF thing. Because it can stand for more than just what it's accepted to be stand for. It's kind of cool.
On the next link, which turned out to be a screen capture from what looked like a large American bank's front page. It had been hacked. The hacker had written a message in red, inside a large graphic of a scary-looking rabbit. Some of the other links included photographs of similar images on posters taped to telephone poles, traffic light poles, and stapled onto a variety of walls in various cities all over the world. The message from that first screen capture was brief. I want the future we were promised, not the future we deserve.
See, now this theme is an interesting theme, especially when you get into deeper episodes and start exploring it more. And it looks at the paradoxes between getting what you want versus getting what you've earned. It's very interesting. I really enjoy that whole philosophical look at it.
Hazel. The other links were filled with similar things. A diatribe about the future we were promised, something Hazel referred to as the Roddenberry, which details how we should be much further along the path to ending racism, sexism, homophobia, abolishing money, greed, and entitlement culture.
Which is interesting. I really like that where we should be versus where we're at dichotomy in the story, and the things that goes into how they explore it out.
Hazel talks at length in one section about how we ended up living in Oliver Stone's natural-born killers, instead of starting down the path to the inclusive world of Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek.
And that is a very, very good way of diagnosing American culture today. To me, it's more than superficial. If you actually sit there and you look at it as a thought exercise, it's kind of interesting. Then, at least from my perspective, is you take that same dichotomy between Gene Roddenberry's Star Trek and the Natural Born Killers movie, and you basically fast forward it to the future, where you get Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep versus Star Trek Gene Roddenberry. It's just really how these two parallels can be cut. You always can find something on either side of the gap, for lack of a better term, the gap between good and I should say the gap between topian and the gap between dystopian. I hope that clears things up.
The last link I clicked brought up a photograph of an old painting. It was a dark red and black oil painting of an old Nazi SS officer holding a small dog, while fires burned behind him in the distance. I called Jones over to have a look.
It's called Doglover in Hell.
You've seen it before?
Yeah. There's a lot of mythology surrounding this painting. It's almost like an artifact of the game.
It's interesting. I love this concept that it's starting to go into.
What's special about it?
It was allegedly uncovered in 1959. It was the marker that finally confirmed the re-emergence of the game.
The version that became known as 1.
Yes.
So how did it become known as Rabbits instead of creepy Nazi dog guy?
The images of the rabbit were discovered first. A list of rules in the laundromat, and later, other rabbits were discovered stamped on sidewalks in Brussels, Hong Kong, and Portland. This painting was kind of the final confirmation that the game had reappeared.
So the rabbit clues eventually led to this thing?
Doglover in Hell.
Yikes.
Do you recognize the artist?
I don't.
It's Manet.
Right, okay. It does look a lot like Manet.
Manet or Monet. I've heard it pronounced both ways. I'm not sure which is correct. I've always pronounced it Monet, so that's just me.
Kind of exactly like a Manet now that you mention it. But that's a century too early.
Yes, so it would appear.
You're not trying to tell me that you believe it's genuine.
I'm not trying to tell you anything.
In other news, they didn't have Nazis in the mid-19th century.
It's an interesting painting, though, isn't it?
It's creepy AF.
There's actually a copy of an alleged authentication session, but of course nobody's willing to officially go on the record.
So, this, once again, we circle back to the impossible or improbable things that keep popping up around rabbits.
That's not surprising, because it's not Manet.
You see the symbol on the officer's collar?
The scary birds?
Yes, but these particular scary birds have an interesting design woven into their feathers. Where there are normally just 3 lines per wing, here they're broken up. These, along with similar broken lines in the dog's collar, here.
So...
These lines represent a coded message.
Coded message? What kind of code?
Smitty code.
What's that?
Rumor has it that Captain Carlisle Smitty Harris came up with it in Vietnam. Harris allegedly heard it from an Air Force instructor. It was based on a Polybius square.
Like the video game?
No, not at all. It's a 5x5 alphabet matrix. Each letter is communicated by tapping 2 numbers. The first gives you the horizontal row, the second the vertical.
Sounds complicated.
It's dead simple. But the code isn't important. It's the message that was interesting.
What message?
4 words. The door is open.
That is something, when exploring this podcast by yourself or reading the novels, that phrase right there is something you need to put a pin in.
The door is open. Jones went on to explain how that phrase was widely considered, among students of the game, to indicate the start. Kind of like a gentlemen start your engines thing. He seemed to believe that this phrase had been used to kick off the game for ages, from as far back as the very first Olympic Games in Greece, around 776 BCE. The door is open.
I want to go kind of down a little side path for a moment here. The use of CE and BCE, I reluctantly accept it, but I prefer the old BC and AD just simply because that's the way I grew up. If you really want to have a really good take on the use of BCE and CE versus AD and BC, Neil deGrasse Tyson has done several little videos on both YouTube and Facebook, and I believe Twitter, where he explains his view on terminology, and I pretty much agree with him. So if you want to check it out, go ahead and Google it or go to YouTube and do a search for it. It's kind of interesting.
Before Jones went home, wherever that might be, I wanted to make sure I found out everything he knew about what had happened to my parents. He wasn't leaving until I got everything. Tell me everything you know about what happened to my parents.
You know what I know.
I don't believe you. You hinted that they were into something. Okay, let's start with this. Why do you have their death certificates and where did you get them?
Now we're playing the game of, to get the right answer, you need to ask the right question, and words have meanings, so you have to be very particular in the wording that you use.
Getting involved in the game means researching some dark corners of the world of information.
I'm getting that sense.
Right. Well, it used to mean ancient libraries, secret societies, real Tomb Raider type stuff.
And now?
Now, all that ancient stuff remains, but we also have the information superhighway to contend with.
I get it. There's a lot of information.
Right. And sometimes the relevance of that information isn't apparent for a long time.
And that is that's one of the things I love about this podcast, is there have been seeds planted through every episode that in later episodes come to fruition. They bloom, and we get to see how and why they came to be where they're at.
What does this have to do with my parents?
Copies of your parents' death certificates were discovered in a purse in a train station in Prague in 2007. To be more specific, they were found in the personal belongings of a woman who jumped in front of a train in that station in mid-January.
That's impossible. My parents died on February 14th of 2007. The dates must be off.
That's what I thought. At first.
At first? What do you mean?
The available data, which includes some video footage, appears to corroborate that version of the story.
Well, that version is wrong.
A reporter playing rabbits.
I'm sorry?
She was a reporter playing rabbits, the woman who jumped in front of the train.
How do you know she was playing rabbits?
The magician and other research.
Other research. Okay. Did your other research tell you anything else about my parents? Anything at all? I'm serious. You promised to be open with me about everything.
There was something else, yeah.
Something about the reporter?
I don't know yet. It's unclear.
Tell me.
Have you heard of something called the Gatwick Institute?
No.
Now, for those adventurous enough to read the novels, remember the Gatwick Institute.
Found your parents' names on a signed-in document tied to a pre-screening test for a study funded by the Gatwick Institute.
What's the Gatwick Institute?
There's not a lot of information available, but from what I've been able to dig up so far, it looks like they were a kind of medical research organization. They funded a number of studies in the 70s and 80s.
And you found my parents' names on some list?
A pre-screening test, yeah.
Why were you looking for my parents' names on some medical study from the 70s or 80s?
I wasn't.
What were you looking for?
I was looking for my parents' names.
Did you find them?
Yes.
So, why was Jones looking into the Gatwick Institute? Well, I'll get into that next time, along with updates on Yumiko's disappearance and the information we received from the magician. It's Rabbits. I'm Carly Parker. We'll be back again in 2 weeks. Until then, stay safe.
So there we have the conclusion of Doglover in Hell. This is one of the episodes that sets up stuff. This is what I like to refer to as a seedling episode. I mean, everything up, probably the first 5, maybe 5.5 episodes are seeding episodes. They seed everything that's going to be relevant in the last half of the season. It's very well done, because there are things, the first time I listened to this series, that I blew off in the early episodes. I'm like, yeah, whatever. That came back and I was like, hey, I know that. I remember that. So when you going through it this time, breaking it down, there are things that I want to point out, but I hold my tongue on it simply because it would spoil what's coming up. So that's that. Next week we'll be starting episode 5. And until then, people, peace.